Welcome, everybody. Glad to be here today to talk with you a little bit more about price transparency. My name is Ken Jackson. I'm the Chief Client Officer here at Sliced Health and work with clients on a very regular basis with price transparency. And so it is something that is near and dear to our hearts. If you want to check out, we have talked about this in the past. Over a couple of other subjects around what is compliance, as well as, is compliance form or substance, and some of those types of issues. And so feel free to go and listen to those recordings as well. But today, what I want to talk to you about is how to maintain compliance without making it a yearly fire drill. I work with a lot of clients, and sometimes it is surprising. We all know it's there. We all know it has to be updated yearly, but December rolls around and everybody panics. So I want to really talk about what goes into maintaining that machine readable file and how you can stay ahead so that when the time comes to update, because you do have to update the machine readable file once a year, that it doesn't become a headache over and over and over again, and you just relive it kind of like Groundhog Day. Let's make it as easy as possible going forward. So a few things that I would talk about, probably the biggest, is ChargeMaster and ChargeMaster maintenance, because that is by far the biggest element of the machine readable file. And I think my very first suggestion is, if you haven't done a review of your ChargeMaster, if you haven't reviewed it for compliance, for charges, for the actual substance of what's in the file, I would suggest you do it. Whether that is utilizing a consultant or whether that is doing it internally. What I find is that a lot of people have a ChargeMaster, but they are not cleaning it up, is what I'm going to call it, on a regular basis. So what happens is, and probably the easiest example of this would be an implant, like a screw that might be used in surgery. When I buy this item, there's a cost to it. There is a markup formula usually that's used to figure out what the charge is. So I buy it, I use it, I charge for it. And today that charge works out to be $200. Well, the next surgery I do where I use that same item, now I buy it again, and now it's a different price. And now the markup formula gives me a different charge. And so if I'm not utilizing a system that is adapting to that dynamically, right, taking the invoice, using the markup formula, pushing the charge to the claim, but instead I'm having to build another charge item for the new item and the new cost and the new charge. I have seen ChargeMasters where I've got the same item in there 30 times with 30 different charges. But which one do you publish in your machine readable file? In theory, it's the last one, but sometimes that's not self-evident in the ChargeMaster. So that is one of those areas where you can truly help yourself if you're maintaining that ChargeMaster a little more meticulously, so that what is there is truly representative of how you're charging in the moment, as opposed to how I charge 5 months ago, 3 months ago, 2 months ago, and now. Because it will wreak havoc in your machine readable file to post a ChargeMaster that has duplicate charge codes, or post one that has 0 charge items. And the reason why that causes so much difficulty is because if I'm trying to create a negotiated rate, guess what 80% of 0 is? it's zero. And we don't typically negotiate zero negotiated rates. There are certainly rules that apply to some things like a venipuncture or something like that where we might get paid zero. But as a general rule, we're getting paid for that item. So to this point, I would say you want to review your charge master on a regular basis, take out all the duplicates, make sure you don't have that in there, and then make sure that you don't have zero charge items. To the extent that you have to, and I'll give you an example of that. A lot of charge masters do exist where I have a placeholder for a drug. And what's happening is my system is pushing the charge for the drug each time I use it because the average wholesale price changes as I buy it, and the markup formula pushes a new charge. And so in those dynamic pricing scenarios, it's not uncommon to have zero charge items. So to help you with the production of the machine readable file, just make sure you have at hand, close by, what your markup formula is and a way to pull out the average wholesale price on all those drugs in a way that it relates to the charge code that's in the charge master. It'll make it a whole lot simpler to apply that markup formula and get the right price there in that moment in time. A lot of materials management works the same way, where we'll take an invoice for a supply and we'll mark it up if it's chargeable. And so again, have the markup formula at hand, have a way to get to the cost as quickly as possible so that again, you can apply those things. And it doesn't come as a surprise each year. Oh yeah, I remember now. I've got to go get my formulary. I've got to apply this markup formula and figure out what my charge is today. If you're just keep that in mind, any changes that you make sure you have it nearby. That is going to help you at the end of the year. The other thing that I will tell you is don't wait to December. Your best way of making this as stress-free as possible is if the date of your file is, let's say, December 31st, or maybe it's January the 1st. Start on it 3 months ahead. Begin looking at your charge master and making sure it's updated and preparing to create the new machine readable file. Because for all of those data elements that I just described with the markup formulas and trying to get to the actual charge, if you put it off until the last minute, you may have difficulty getting all that done in time to change the machine readable file and get a date on there that will stay in compliance because it does have to be updated once a year. Another element there that you need to take into account for in planning is the fact that now we have NDC numbers and units and measurements that have to be applied to every one of the charge codes for a pharmacy item. So again, if you're waiting to the last minute, that can then become a very stressful moment in trying to remember, how did I pull this from the formulary? How did I link this to my charge master so that everything occurred in the machine readable file? So, my second suggestion would be after taking care of the charge master and maintaining it, having the information available from these different systems that may feed into it, it's start early on compliance. Don't put it off to the last minute. It's easy to do, but it's painful. I think the other thing that I would say is be aware as you're preparing to put out a new machine readable file and potentially reviewing your shoppable services. Be very aware of what's changed during the year. Whether that is a price increase, which is a fairly regular thing inside a hospital system that you would have a price increase once a year. But consider things like services that have been discontinued or services that have been added. Did I open a new clinic? Did I open a new outpatient treatment area? Did I open a new clinic somewhere? Those things could create the opportunity, and you may want to, as you're doing that, you may want to go ahead and change price transparency ahead of time, especially if you add something new that you specifically want and are marketing to your community. You may want to go ahead. There's nothing that says you can't change that every month for every change that you make. So if there's a significant change, I would consider going ahead and republishing with a new charge master. In those moments, it may be a little bit easier because all you need to do, let's say it's a new service, you've got 100 charge codes that are related to it. You could just add those 100 items to your current machine readable file and be done versus having to redo the whole thing. So taking it from that step-by-step approach, especially in a changing environment where you are adding services, deleting services, maybe changing even your hospital focus, right? I know plenty of critical access hospitals that have changed to a new REH designation. And in that moment, methodology changes on contracts. Your charge master changes because you would no longer be providing inpatient services. There are a lot of things that change. And so handling that sooner rather than later can also help. So just keeping track. So if I had to go back and put that list back together and just reiterate it, a clean charge master is paramount. So maintaining that as best you can for compliance, as well as just, again, no duplicates, no zero charge items, will help you a lot. The second one would be certainly all of those data elements that you're going to have from the other systems, whether that's the formulary or whether it's your materials management. Make sure you have a grasp and a handle on that, the reports that you need, keep track of that so that you can reproduce them the next time you want to update that machine readable file. One thing I didn't talk about in detail, but it goes without saying, is if you renegotiate a contract, you now have a new negotiated rate. And so make sure that you're tracking those changes so that they can be incorporated in the new file. And then the last thing are those services that are either being added or deleted. And again, any of these elements, especially these last couple that I talked about, may produce the moment where you want to go out and create a new machine readable file and not wait for the year, because you not only want a new machine readable file, but you also want new shoppable services so that people can shop for maybe the new service that you added, or they're no longer looking at the old service you don't provide. Hopefully that was helpful, and we will talk soon, and can't wait.